Well, hi everyone. I'm John Rethlin with a retro review of WCW Bash at the Beach 1995, taking place in Mike Huntington Beach, California, and sponsored by Slim Jim, which they only mentioned about 80 million times, probably 100 million times if you include the intro. But to be fair, when they got Randy Savage, he brought Slim Jim, and that was a lot of money for them. So take advantage of the sponsor and take advantage of the money and get all that sweet ad revenue and pay for Hulk Hogan's contract. And the fact that they were blowing a lot of money on shows like this where, oh yeah, there probably weren't too many tickets sold. It was just like, hey, first come, first serve, just show up, like the Road Wild shows or the Hog Wild shows. WCW pissed away a lot of money with a lot of outdoor shows like this. But you know what? As a teenager, I liked the whole aspect of it taking place on the beach. The problem is after 25 years, this show has not really held up at all. Now, this is also in 1995 where both mainstream companies were doing occasional good matches on pay-per-view, and then they were doing shit like this. No matter how good the talent was, some of the creative, some of the endings, some of the decisions, the champions and everything, and just the way they set up some of these matches, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So, yeah, I gotta be honest, I didn't really enjoy this show, but I wasn't bored because Bobby Heenan and Tony Schiavone really made this show by just having a whole lot of fun. So, we get a Ming video package, and then, hyping up how he's going to face Sting pretty soon. And Sting then says, I've got my muscles going just right. Phrasing, Sting. Phrasing. Mean Gene cutting, or doing the backstage interviews is pretty damn cool. Actually, I think they were just taking place in the weird tent that they had. Also, it had a Baywatch theme, because I think they were filming some parts of a Baywatch episode that was going to feature Hogan, Flair, Vader, I want to say Sting. I don't remember if anybody else did. Maybe Kevin Sullivan. I have no idea. But we start off with what was the longest match of the night. Ming versus Sting, U.S. Championship on the line. And Colonel Rob Parker was in Ming's corner. Look, they got the crowd fired up. And Ming is not a guy that's going to do a whole lot of flips and everything. He's going to use power and the Tong, he's going to use the nerve holds and stuff like that and try to go for the Tongan death grip. And Sting was good at being fired up. Bobby Heenan getting off a lot of good lines here. I wrote down a few of them throughout the show. Randy Anderson, the only man in the world that takes 8 seconds to count to 3, because Heenan is just goddamn amazing. Ming hits a splash for 2 that was almost 3. The crowd started booing. So at times the crowd was great, and then at times they were like, what the fuck? Why are we watching this? Oh, wait, we're just going to party. Woo! That's pretty much all it was. And Sting hits the most devastating maneuver in all of professional wrestling, even back in 1995. The surprise roll-up, 1, 2, 3. Then Ming attacks afterwards, and then Hawk makes the save. Because Road Warrior Hawk was there, and then Road Warrior Animal, I want to say, was in Japan or something, but it was weird. This is during the time where they were all separated. But then we have, oh boy, we have a promo from the Renegade. Now I want to say right now, and I've said in other WCW reviews, I'm not going to knock the person. I feel bad for the man that played the Renegade. He was doomed from the goddamn start. One, it was a bad Ultimate Warrior gimmick, knockoff and everything. It wasn't going to work at all. And the guy was a good worker. He actually could execute some pretty good stuff off the top. He had a pretty good top rope splash. The problem is he was also put out there way too soon, and you saw that as evident, in plenty of evidence here. Because he hit some drop kicks on Paul Orndorff for the TV championship, by the way, which they just didn't land, and the crowd just was not liking it. At one point, Orndorff throws sand in the eyes of Renegade, and this wasn't good. This was not good at all. I feel so bad for the Renegade. It was actually pretty shameful. I feel bad for the Renegade, the person himself, though. If you know what happened to the man himself, it really is sad. But yeah, this wasn't a good match. Belly-to-back suplex, and they do the pin thing where, Renegade has his shoulder up, and then Orndorff gets his shoulder up, but oh no, the ref didn't see it. And then they do that, and, so he loses. And then he spike pile drives Renegade afterwards. And then what happens is Renegade pops up and then hits a top rope clothesline. And the crowd boos heavily. Again, feel bad for the Renegade. So we then get footage of the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, and the former, or the first ever Exalted One or whatever, the King Curtis basically was his name. Remember the Dungeon of Doom? Sullivan, my son! Remember that bullshit? Yeah, this is where a lot of this stuff was going. Kamala was summoned from the dead. Why was the Dungeon of Doom ever a thing? Why was Kevin Sullivan ever a thing in the ring? He had one of the worst damn finishers in the world. He was a decent talker, but he wasn't great, and the whole Sullivan, my son, and I'm going to have to review Halloween Havoc 95, aren't I? The Yeti. So yeah, Kamala gets summoned, and then we get Jim Duggan refusing to handle his wood properly and just tossing it on the ground. And then we get Jim Duggan versus Kamala on a WCW pay-per-view in 1995. Why? Fuck if I know. And I got nothing against either of these guys, but this was another shameful match. Zodiac runs in at one point after like about 5.5 minutes in, or 6 minutes in, hits Duggan while the referee's distracted. Really stupidly, by the way. And then Kamala gets a 3 count. Hooray. That's just what we need on a pay-per-view. Again, I know it was a different time, but there are just some matches where you're like, this just didn't seem like a good idea at the time. Yeah, you're not going to get flips and everything from these guys, or you're not going to get like fast-paced wrestling, but you got to get at least something interesting. And when Jim Duggan's the best one at this point in 95, you got Kamala, who was a shell of what he was. It just wasn't good. It just wasn't. Randy was in Slim Jim gear, and he talks about Flair and everything, and a lot of Slim Jim gear, because it was sponsored by Slim Jim. Did I mention that? They mentioned it a lot. DDP with Max Muscle and the Diamond Doll, the future Kimberly, versus Dave Sullivan. Yeah, this was continuing a feud that nobody asked for, needed, or wanted, and eventually, after big distraction, Diamond cut it for 3 after about 4.5 minutes. Harlem Heat and Sensational Sherry talk a bit, and then we get them, Sherry's on the outside, versus the Blue Bloods, which was Lord Steven Regal and Earl Robert Eaton, versus the Nasty Boys, WCW Tag Team Championship 3-way match, triple threat match. So the idea is whoever gets the first pin gets the victory, right? But they also mentioned that a coin toss is going to take place to decide what 2 teams will start, instead of maybe just being smart and having 3 men start. Nope, you can't do that. You got to do a coin toss, so you got to overcomplicate something. And then the ring announcer mentions if a team gets DQ'd, then the remaining 2 teams face off. Quick question: who gets DQ'd, or how can you get DQ'd in a triple threat match? An elimination match, I do get that. They never quantified that. They never said it was an elimination match, so they just were making up shit as they went along. Look, this match should have been so much better than it was. And I don't really care for the Nasty Boys, but in their element and with the, in more of a brawling sense, they were actually fine. But you got Regal and Eaton, and even at that point, Bobby Eaton still had, plenty of life left, even after all the years he'd been in wrestling. And you got Harlem Heat, one of the best tag teams of all time, in my personal opinion. They would be top 10 for me. But just at least top 10 since, I would say, the 90s. But this didn't work. It took a while to get going. It got sloppy. They got sand in the ring. A lot of sand got in the ring. And then Regal's being topped by Sags, but Booker's on top, but just underneath. So Booker actually gets the victory. The Nasty Boys think they won. Oh no, Harlem Heat steals it. They get the victory, and they remain the champs. And then Harlem Heat cuts promo afterwards. Also loves Sherry as Harlem Heat's manager. Just damn, she got better with age. But in all seriousness, she actually fit them perfectly. I would say as far as pairing a manager with a tag team, Sherry's right up there. Now, it didn't last as long as some pairings for tag teams, Cornette and the Midnight Express, and Lou Albano and the Wild Samoan, stuff like that. Well, I'm just throwing out ones that I can think of. But I would say Sherry and Harlem Heat were a goddamn good tag team. And then Shivani and Heenan kill time. And then Flair talks about Miss Elizabeth and Savage, referencing all that stuff back in 1992. And then the Baywatch beauties, in the largest quotations possible, because it depends on what you're into. It's not that any of them are ugly. I just also never cared for Baywatch. Even as a teenager, I was just like, what? Okay, what's the slow-mo stuff? Oh boy, the titties, they be bouncing. Wasn't good TV. Go back and watch that shit. It was not good TV. Got big ratings. Wasn't good TV. They arrive, and then we get guys like Duggan, Arn, Slater, Harlem Heat, Dave Sullivan, Johnny B. Bad, and, I want to say Nasty Boys. I think were also there. A few other people were there as lifeguards. Because it's a lifeguard match, because it's on the beach. So it's not a lumberjack excuse me, the lumberjack match, it's a lifeguard match. And because it's Randy Savage versus Ric Flair, it's playing off of what happened at Great American Bash 95, which you can check out my review of that if you want. Flair makes his entrance, and they're doing some really, really good pomp and circumstance here, which brings out Savage because they had, that was his theme. And then he sees his dad because his dad got attacked by Flair at the end of Great American Bash. And he's there in the sand, just staying around, in the front row. And Heenan has one of the funniest goddamn lines. He says, yeah, his dad's been here for hours. You know why? His cane got stuck in the sand. He's been going around in a circle. I miss Bobby Heenan so much. God, even when he didn't give a shit, like when he was in WCW, fucking hell, Heenan he had that fucking quick wit. He was goddamn great. If you don't get too much out of this show, you will get a major kick out of Bobby Heenan's commentary. And him and Shivani seem to be having a goddamn blast because they were just going back and forth, sniping at each other. It was no Monsoon in Heenan, but Shivani was a great foil for Heenan. He really was. They were a great commentary duo. And this match, it wasn't bad, but it was also overly gimmicked because you knew Arn was going to get involved because he was one of the lifeguards. And the lifeguards fight, of course, when they try to get the guys back in the ring. Savage gets in the sand, so more sand gets in the ring. Shivani says the one line he's pounding on Savage, which I reacted to with the maturity and class that you would all come to expect from me. And if you expect that, you are clearly a new viewer. Then, what was it? Savage was getting his leg beat down, and Angelo Poffo, Randy's dad, had a bad leg as well. Hence the cane. And Heenan says they each got one bad leg and one good leg. They can share the same stick. If I mentioned I miss Bobby Heenan, fucking hell, he's great. Arn interferes, hits a DDT, but in the end, it's to no avail. Top rope elbow soon after. 1, 2, 3. And then Vader cuts a promo where he says brother about 100 times. And I love Vader. R.I.P. Vader. Should have been in the Hall of Fame, the WWE Hall of Fame, before he passed away. Whatever I feel about that Hall of Fame is fucking bullshit that he wasn't inducted for being just a great monster heel in Japan, WCW, and completely underutilized in WWE. But Vader talks a bit and everything, and said brother about 100 times. Hogan and Rodman are talking. Weird that Hogan would want to be around Rodman, considering he doesn't like people like Rodman. Maybe it's because he's rich and he doesn't see color there. Hogan, by the way, never apologized for being racist. He just apologized for getting caught. So anyway, he apologized and he means it, then guess what? Then maybe people can forgive him. Until then, no. All the stuff he did in wrestling, noted, still a fucking racist. Vader versus Hogan, steel cage match for the WCW title. Well, Hogan uses Vader's, helmet thingy that, where the steam came out of it and everything, which actually debuted in WCW during his debut match, which I just reviewed at WCW Great American Bash 1990. He squashes Tom Zink, the Z-Man. That was good stuff. Check out that review if you'd like. It was a typical Hogan match in the mid-90s. It was still the red and yellow Hogan trying to do shit. Vader hits 2 Vader bombs to get a kick out. Vader's little mask flies off. Doesn't fly off, but he gets taken off. A bad landing, and he hurt his shoulder afterwards. I think this is the match soon after they would require him to get shoulder surgery, and that's why he would be gone from after debuting in WWE after the Royal Rumble. He would take out Monsoon the next night. And then he would get shoulder surgery, and they'd say, hey, we need you back for Mania, despite the fact that it was like barely any time for him to recover. So, we get a splash off the rails, kick out, he hulks up. Zodiac and Kevin Sullivan jump in because we didn't, get enough of seeing that bullshit before. Rodman fights them off. And then Hogan escapes to win. And then Flair runs in because he's upset at Vader, saying, you should have beaten Hulk Hogan. You should have done all this. And then they kind of get in a bit of a scuffle, and Vader tries to grab him by the throat, and Arn runs in, and he gets fought off. And I think Vader would face Flair and Arn in a handicap match at the next Clash, which I believe is next month. And they did hype up Collision in Korea as their next pay-per-view. That's not available on the WWE Network. If it's available in full on YouTube, please let me know. I would love to actually watch and review that at some point. Because I seen it, it was a while ago. But let me know. Anyway, what do you guys think of this pay-per-view? Like, do you think it holds up? Did you enjoy it the first time? Did you enjoy it less? Because overall, it was entertaining. It wasn't particularly a good show, but it was entertaining. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.